Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, where we explore the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. I'm your host, Tay Jones. Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast. Today, my guest is Luke Mickelson. He's the founder of Sleep in Heavenly Peace, a charity that believes that all children deserve a safe, comfortable place to lay their head at night. And to date, Sleep in Heavenly Peace has provided around 350,000 beds for children in need, making it the largest bed-building charity in the world. So I'm really looking forward to connecting with Luke today and introducing him and his mission to all of you. Luke Mickelson, welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast.
Thanks, Dave, for having me. This is great.
Absolutely. So I'm really excited to hear from you, and just to get to know you a little bit as a person, but also to learn a bit about this behemoth of a charity that you've built, which is really adding a lot of value to people's lives, and it's really making a big impact to not just the world, but to individual people and families. So really impressive. And what I like to do is just to get to know a little bit about the person that I have on the show as well. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? Where are you from right now? Where are you recording?
You bet. Yeah. And thanks again for having me. This is great. I love coming on podcasts and you have that personality of, hey, we're just going to have a conversation, and if it goes crazy, it goes crazy. But
That's
I
right.
love it, Yeah. I'm a farm kid from Idaho. That pretty much sums me up.
Okay.
I from a small town, and I tell people the beauty about living in a small town is you get to know everybody, and the terrible thing about living in a small town is you get to know everybody.
Yeah, I know the feeling well.
Yeah. Well, really, the nice thing about it is, when you get to know everybody, you learn to kind of rely on everybody, and they rely on you. And I really feel like that has built in me a sense of, enjoyment for service and helping others and being with other people. Being from Idaho, I love to hunt. I love to fish. I'm a sports guy. I mean, when you grow up in a small town and your graduating class is 69 people, you kind of have to realize that if you know how to pick up a ball and throw it accurately anywhere, you're going to play sports, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was great, right? It helped me develop my joy for competition, but more importantly, my enjoyment for having a team and working together as a team, sweating and challenges and all the things that come with sports and working together really has coming from a small town has really helped me develop my life and who I am. And, it helped me in my business careers as I grew and started working in my early 20s. I was a outside salesman, if that doesn't shock everybody, working for my stepdad, at a water treatment company. And I feel like the success I had in work came from my small town upbringing, my learning how to work hard, but more importantly, learning how to work with people and enjoying working with people, and finding that, listen, everybody, we go to work and we make a paycheck or we get a paycheck rather. But the most important thing to me wasn't so much that as I wanted to view my job as a form of service, of working for someone, being the guy people rely on to get the job done. And so again, that all comes from, I think my mom was a big influence, but living up in a small town and having close friends, it really develops you, I think.
Yeah. So you grew up in the town and you still live in the same town? Have you explored out, or have you stayed there your whole life?
Yeah, I've done a little bit of exploring. So the answer to that is yes and no. Kimberly is a small 4,000 populated town. Right next door is Twin Falls, and still, relative for Idaho, it's big, but it's only about 50,000 people, right? So it's a relatively still small town. But I ventured out. I served a mission for my church, 30 years ago. Geez, it's been a while now. And I, which was in Texas, the biggest, a big town of Texas, actually a small town of Texas, about 100,000 people, right? But so I lived there, and I went to school in Idaho State, and then moved for work. I moved up to Washington for a while. So
Hmm.
and then about 2 years ago, me and my wife moved to North Carolina for a little while, related to Sleep in Heavenly Peace. But I've had the joy of traveling the country and meeting all sorts of people of different areas and cultures and whatnot. And really, it's just been such a blessing to be able to see these different types of people, whether they come from whatever religion, whatever political background, whatever ethnicity they are. You get to learn and I don't know how to get along together, and so
Yeah.
that's been a fun part of what I do. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Idaho, you could do a lot worse. I love Idaho. We have some family up in Coeur d'Alene area,
oh
and
yeah.
we were thinking about moving there a while, but we ended up settling because we were in Washington, and we're in Arizona. You could do a lot worse than Arizona as well, you know.
Yeah, both ends of the spectrum, by the way. You're gonna freeze your butt off in Coeur d'Alene. Beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, just gorgeous. But there's a lot of snow up there.
Yeah, I'm originally from Alaska, so I love the
Oh,
cold. I love the cold, and I hate the heat. That's why everybody thinks I'm crazy for being in Arizona. But it's 3 months of really, really, really bad weather, and that's in the
oh yeah.
summer. It's the opposite of everywhere else. You do everything in the winter, here. But
Correct. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I did hear you mention your wife when you were talking about moving to North Carolina. So you're married. You have children?
I do. We're a blended family.
Okay.
She had 3 kids. I got 3 kids. We've been married for, oh my gosh, now what? Only about 3 years.
Oh, okay.
Been together for 4, and just the love of my life. I tell everybody, it took me 2 times around the horn to figure it out, but boy, did I land on a winner. I mean, she's
Yeah.
just she is the inspiration that gets me through the days, right? And
Yeah.
I've never met someone that was more like me and my personality. I mean, she was the star athlete of not only just her high school, but also the college she went to.
Hmm.
And so we share a real close bond with how we enjoy competition, and which when you look at parenting and you look at child upbringing and whatnot, it really does affect your way of child rearing, if you will, when you come from different backgrounds, like not being an athlete and not being an athlete, right? And
Yeah.
and my first wife, we were a lot like that. I was an athlete and she wasn't, and that's that always as a challenge. But now I feel so grateful to have such an amazing woman.
Yeah, that's great. Did she work as well? Are you guys both kind of out just shucking
She
and jiving all the
stays
time?
at home, but
Okay.
she still works. She's a tattoo artist.
Oh,
She
wow.
actually does
Okay.
permanent makeup, so she does like the eyebrows for
Yeah.
ladies. She does some tattoos. In fact, this tattoo right there,
Hey, look at
that's how we met.
that. Oh
It's
man.
kind of a funny story. I actually knew her, like, well, at this point now it'd be almost 20 years ago. She had just got married, and I had been married for about 6 years or so. And when I moved back home from living in Washington, we went to the same church for just a short period of time. In fact, I only remember we went to one activity where her and her husband were there, and it was fun. There's nothing crazy going on, but I did remember her. I did remember her that she's just the most beautiful thing you'd ever see in your life. And funny, living in a small town, 15 years later, I never saw her, not once, not in
Yeah.
in the grocery store, not. And trust me, I would have remembered if I saw her. But then when I was divorced, I was working out at the gym. Planet Fitness was the gym, and I made this little Facebook group because, again, I like groups. I like
Yeah.
doing things together. And one of my friends invited her to the group. I didn't know about it, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is Belinda! Like, how did she get a part of this group?" And so I found out she did tattoos, and I said, didn't matter what I needed. I was going to get a tattoo, by gosh. And so she did my tattoo, and it was great. And come to find out, she was on the verge of getting a divorce as well. And so we had that kind of camaraderie, be able to talk together. And it was kind of a funny story. About a month later, maybe a month and a half later, after my tattoo, I hadn't talked to her as a tattoo, and go on with life. Well, all of a sudden I get this message from Belinda, and it was like, "Hey, how's your tattoo?" And I was like, "It's great. Thank you so much. It's exactly what I wanted, blah, blah, blah." And she's like, "Well, does it need a touch up?" I was like,
yeah.
I didn't know what that meant, but
that means I would like to see you again. That's what that means. Yeah.
Yes, it does. And so we got together, and at that time she had separated from her husband, and so we just started dating. And when we all both got divorced, we dated for about a year, and then got married. So it's been literally bliss ever since. I just can't. I just don't know what else to call it.
Well, that's great. That's great. And for anybody who's only listening to audio, the tattoo in question here, it's the Sleep in Heavenly Peace logo, SHP, on your bicep. So,
that's right.
That's good marketing, but you got to keep yourself in shape, right? You got to get to the gym. That way, when you get flexing out, otherwise you might want to hide it. So you got to keep it in the gym.
Yeah. If it's anything, it's motivation to stay in shape, because, you don't want that to sag down.
That's right.
It's not part of branding.
Nobody can read it anymore. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
man, that's great. One of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about, work, it was your father, wasn't your father, it was your stepdad. Yeah. About, was it water treatment?
Yeah,
I was thinking maybe you had a construction background or something, because that's Sleep in Heavenly Peace. You guys are building beds. And from what I understand, from what I know, that's kind of how it started. You were building beds, in your garage. So, how did you even learn to build a bed? Have you always been handy, or do you have a background in that?
Not at all. No background whatsoever. Okay. I again, being a farm kid, you're on the farm. And I didn't my parents didn't own a farm. They did way back in the day, but no, I just worked for my friends. And as a farm kid working on the farm, you got to figure things out. Sometimes you're out there in the field by yourself, and you just got to figure things out. And I enjoyed the challenge too. So when it came to tools and fixing things, I generally tried to figure it out first on my own. And then through the years of working with the youth and coaching and finding other service activities, I built wheelchair ramps for people and other things. I built like a nativity scene for our church. I just really enjoyed woodworking. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd probably disgrace the name of woodworkers if you looked at my work, but I just enjoyed it, right? And so I wasn't afraid of a tool. In fact, when Sleep in Heavenly Peace, just before I built that first bed, I had a friend of mine was in construction, and my wife at the time was a cosmetologist, right? So she did hair and nails, and so I took my third bay of my garage with my buddy's help, and we built her a salon out there, And so I wasn't a stranger to tools, no, but I had no background and probably no business building furniture.
Yeah, the first kid gets their bed, and you're just crossing your fingers, hoping it all stays together. Right?
Exactly. Well, really, and where this kind of started was, I was at the time in my church service called a young men's president. Now, in the South, you might consider that a youth pastor, although I'm not. I grew up as a coach. I coached all my kids. I coached high school football and baseball and basketball. I just enjoyed the youth. And so my church gave me the position of young men's president. And basically, I was my responsibility was to help the other leaders with the spiritual growth of the boys, as well as the activity arm of the week, the weekly activity, which happened to be Boy Scouts. So that part of it was kind of easy. We had a curriculum we followed. And the hard part was for teenage kids to try to do an activity that didn't involve a screen or a computer was rough. I mean, it's tough to get these kinds of kids out from behind those activities. And so when this landed in my lap, really one of the biggest reasons why I even built that first bed was because it was a great idea to me anyways, that and a great opportunity to get an Xbox controller out of these Boy Scouts hands and put a drill and a hammer and sander in it and teach them the joys of building something with their hands and how to use tools and that kind of stuff. That was a big part of it at the beginning of it. What I didn't realize was how bad child bedlessness really was. And, in this calling and this position of mine, each week, or actually I think it was every other week, we would sit in these meetings with other auxiliary leaders talking about, the events that were going on in the community and in the church, families that we were helping. And one family came up and it really struck a chord with me because two things. Number one, they lived in a part of my town that I didn't even know existed. And keep in mind, this is a small 4,000 populated town. I mean, I had been everywhere. At least I thought so, right? I knew every corner of it, but I didn't know about this apartment complex. So that really piqued my interest. And then, of course, the second thing was, and they talked about the things that they were doing, rent and food and all the stuff that they were helping out with. Well, one of them was that the kids didn't have any beds. And I said, wait a minute. Like, what do you mean they don't have any beds? Like, certainly they're sleeping on mattresses or whatnot. They're like, no, they're sleeping on blankets on the floor. And to me, Tay, it just hit me really hard. Like, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, really? And then the thought come to me, this is awesome. I just had built this salon, so I had, construction on my mind. And I thought, perfect time, perfect opportunity to teach these Boy Scouts how to use tools. And so I went home that night really excited. I grabbed my tape measure, went downstairs. My daughter had a bunk bed. I'm measuring and scheming and planning and all this stuff. I had to make it easy because these are teenage kids, right?
Yeah.
And I'd never built furniture before, so I had. And the honest truth is, I had to borrow my wife's tools at the time, which I don't like to tell you. But they came over that week, Tay, and we had a great time. I was a little worried. That they weren't going to be as excited as I was. But we had a blast. It took a couple of nights, and the boys came over after their football practices and their schools and stuff like that, and we built a bunk bed for this family. It was a really neat experience.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe the catalyst for this whole thing that you've built was maybe you experienced bedlessness as a child, but it just totally by happenstance through your church.
Yep. Yeah. Really weird. Like, and it's nothing like, well, I had never heard of it before. Right. And come to find out no one else has either. And that was probably the biggest fuel to the fire of getting this rolling was as the story goes, we delivered that bed to that family. Well, I didn't get to go on the delivery. I had to stay back and clean my garage because keep in mind, it was the very first part of December in Idaho in a garage. It wasn't exactly, a 5-star hotel there.
Yeah.
a little chilly, and so I had to clean my garage so I could park my cars and get them out of the snow and stuff. And well, the next day at church, they told me how amazing this delivery was and these kids, how happy they were and the parents and all this. And so I was happy. I was excited, but I also was pretty jealous and pretty bummed. I didn't get to see that part of it, right?
Yeah. Fruits of your labor, kind of experience what you had built,
Correct. And, and in the whole background of all this happening, something was going on with me personally for a couple of years. I was about 35, and I don't know, Tay, it seems like everybody goes through some part or point in their life, whether you want to call it a midlife crisis or whatever. But I was smack dab in this middle of this huge faith crisis, huge identity crisis, meaning, when you looked at me on paper, man, I didn't have anything to gripe about. I mean, I had a great job. I was making good money. I was going to buy the company. I was married. I had 3 kids. It was fine. I was coaching. I was happy, living in a great place. And but internally, I just was not fulfilled at all. and I really felt guilty about that. I'm like, hey, I feel like I'm a good guy, and I feel like, I don't ask much, and I like to help and serve and stuff. What is it about me that I'm losing some faith here, and I'm starting to feel like this I don't know, worthless guy, or this guy that just doesn't have any direction. It's just day in and day out the same thing, and it really bothered me, and I fought it for a lot of years.
Yeah.
But when I built that first bed with those Boy Scouts, right, I got an instant jolt of something I hadn't felt for a long time. This fulfillment, this feeling of a hole in my heart, and it was amazing. I kind of felt myself like my old self again. But after we delivered the bed, and the dust had kind of settled, if you will, I could feel this hole start to develop again, and and I hated it. It wasn't me. I loved fishing. I didn't want to fish anymore. I loved watching sports and going out and playing. I didn't like to do that anymore. I was just losing. Kind of felt like I was losing who I was.
Right.
And I remember, about a week or so later, I'm sitting on the couch. My kids and we watch Big Bang Theory. I don't know, love the program, right? And and we're watching, and a commercial came on, and it was another Xbox game or something to do with a computer game. And I remember it's first part of December, is Christmas time. I could see it on my kid's face. I'm just waiting for it, right? It's coming. It's coming. And I was just like, it wasn't their fault, but here Dad was just struggling internally. He just got done with this great Christmas project that the Boy Scouts and I did, filled my soul. Now it's emptying again, and my kids are going to gripe and moan that they're not going to get this Xbox game for Christmas when they've got a bed. I just delivered it to a child that didn't. It just was like, It was like that perfect storm, right, of everything lined up for me to sit there and go, you know what? My kids need to learn the joy of service like my Boy Scouts. They need to learn how to appreciate the things they have, like a bed. And the thought came to me, you know what? I can sit here and teach them and talk to them, even show them pictures and show them videos and all this stuff all day long. Or better yet, I can do my dad responsibility, get my butt off the couch and go into the garage and start building another bed. And that's what I did. I jumped up. We had some leftover wood, walked out to the garage. And my kid's like, Dad, where are you going? Big Bang's on. And I mean, right in the middle of the program, I said, you know what? I've got extra wood. I'm going to build another bunk bed, and you're going to help me. It was great. I mean, I got pictures of my daughter in her pink tutu out there screwing screws, and my son in his favorite Boise State jersey, pounding away. And we just had a lot of fun building that second bed.
Yeah, that's great. When you're talking about, midlife crisis, I like to call it a quarter life crisis. That way I feel like I got more time left, but
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that.
I think everybody kind of goes through that. I mean, I think God has a way of slapping you in the face. And, as you get older and you kind of at least believe anyway that you might have more past than future left ahead, your priorities switch a little bit. And I think maybe that was exactly what you needed. You kind of think about just how lucky you are to have a bed. Who thinks of that? I mean, that's pretty incredible to have that opportunity to bring your kids around with that too. And one of the things that I was kind of thinking about, I mean, like you said, who knows about bedlessness? Everybody talks about homelessness. Everybody knows that. I've dealt, I mean, I haven't been homeless, but in my previous career, I dealt with a lot of homeless people. And to me, I just picture, okay, you're not homeless. You have a house. You must have a bed to sleep in. So that too, absolutely. just the shock of that, like, oh wait, you have a home, but you don't have anything in it. Like you're just sleeping on a blanket. A lot of people I think would not put that together. With the work that you're doing with Sleep in Heavenly Peace, do you feel that maybe that mindset shift has occurred, or are a lot of people thinking about this now, that this is a problem, not just homelessness itself?
Great question, Tay. And let me get you there. So when we were, keep in mind, we built this second bed with my kids, not because I knew that this was a problem, not because I didn't even know that there was another kid out there. The one kid, or the one family, I should say, that I knew that had kids sleep on the floor, we took care of. Like, so, here we were done with this bed, this bunk bed, and I had no idea what to do with it. And I remember my wife at the time says, well, why don't you throw it on like Facebook, buy, sell, trade? And I'm like, you want me to put a free bunk bed on buy, sell, trade? Okay. Here comes all the requests, right? But I formed the post in a way of, hey, this is a family Christmas project. Me and my kids built a bed. We're not carpenters, but if there's a child, and I wanted it to go to a child, right? If there's a family that has kids sleeping on the floor, we would love to give this bed to you. Well, a couple of things happened. Yes, we got a few people that saw free bed and blah, blah, blah. But we got more people, friends and even strangers I've never met, share the stories and the situations of the kids that they knew that were sleeping on the floor. And it was quite a few of them. I mean, it was so shocking. That was one thing. And then, everybody else could read the same comments on the post as well. And I had friends that were I haven't seen for 20 years, comment, say, hey, Luke, this is a great idea. Hey, how can I help? Can I bring you a mattress? Can I bring you some sheets and pillows and all this stuff? It really was a community type event that came together all from this one little post.
Yeah.
And then I got a call one night from another friend of mine that lived about 30 minutes away. And she was a social worker. And she says, Luke, I have the perfect family for you. And this is my Haley story. Haley was a 6-year-old girl that had never slept on a bed. She slept in the backseat of her mom's car. They were homeless, right? And I'm sure she couch dived once in a while, but for the most part, her life was in the backseat of her mom's car. Well, they just got a house. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for, right? So we loaded up the bed and drove out to this house. And like you said, you've worked with homeless before and transitioning homelessness. And I'd seen some of that as well, but I had never seen it, or certainly hadn't looked through the lens of a 6-year-old, So when you walk in this house, it was probably what I expected. There wasn't really anything in the house. In fact, there was no furniture, no couch or table or anything like that. There was a milk crate that had a hot plate and a can of soup on it. That was really the only thing in the house. But this little girl, this Haley, was so excited because she finally had a house, right? And I said, well, show me your bedroom, right? So she drugged me back in her bedroom, and you can imagine what it looked like, right? Holes in the carpet and tears on the wallpaper and all this. But the most shocking thing about that room wasn't any of that. It was the nest of clothes in the corner. It was her school clothes. Like, she would come home from school, take her school clothes off, put her PJs on and sleep on them, and then in the morning, put them back on. And this was her life. Right. And it just, at first I was like upset about it. I was like, man, this is going on in my own hometown.
Yeah.
Screw that. Right. But then I said, you know what? It turned to appreciation and excitement because we were there with a bed for her. And so as we started bringing in these pieces of bed and putting it together, you could see Haley was trying to figure it out, what we were doing. And then all of a sudden, she realized this is a bed. She just erupted. She came and hugged me and my friend and hugged and kissed the bed. It was really amazing. And if that didn't melt your heart, right? I look up at mom, single mom, and I was raised by a single mom too. Tears just pouring down her face, and I knew what every single one of those tears meant because I'd seen my mom experience it. I knew what it was like for a mom to struggle, not being able to, what she felt like was not being able to take care of her kids. Food, clothing, shelter. Those are the 3 big ones we just talked about. They're taken care of, but a bed for a child, no, like she couldn't. It was a luxury to them at that point, which is a terrible thing, right? And so we were really excited to be able to deliver this bed. And to answer your question, as we delivered more beds and shared more of the stories and experiences online, I started getting calls from places like CASA, Child Protective Services, foster care program organizations, and come to find out, beds for kids is typically the number one, or at least in the top three hardest things for these people, these organizations to find. It blew me away. And the reason why is because no one was doing it, right? No one was taking care of this problem. And so I knew right then and there, okay, listen, child bedlessness, although not a real word, is a real problem. That was coined by Mike Rowe, by the way. This is something that we had to take care of. We had to solve. And, on the way home from that first delivery that I went on, look, man, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I love hunting, fishing. I love college sports, and Saturday mornings were filled with watching college football. And just like that, none of that mattered anymore, right? I knew that, for a couple of hours, for a few nights, building a bed to solve that problem, that was well worth my time. And so that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah. And you start with a group of Boy Scouts. You end up with your daughter in a tutu in your garage, building a bed for a 6-year-old named Haley, to around 350,000 beds delivered to children. I mean, what's the progression there? How do you go from that scenario to where you're at now, being the biggest bed building charity in the world?
Well, what we found was, again, the more we delivered, the more we found out about more kids. So you wanted to build more. So you'd build more, you delivered more would come in. It was just this waterfall, if you will, of tidal wave, more like, of applications. And, it was like one of those 3-headed dragons. You slice off one head and 2 more grow, right? Yeah. It was just a beast that we were not catching up with. And another cool thing happened more later on, when we became a charity. More of our friends and family members that lived, a couple of states away or whatnot, saw what we were doing, was following us, and decided, you know what, we wanted to do this in our own hometown. So we thought, okay, great. Well, we're a charity now. Why don't you become a chapter of our charity? I mean, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I had no idea what I was doing, right? I didn't know 501c3 was anything, right?
Yeah.
But we figured it out, and we worked together. Me and my best friend for 40 years, Jordan Allen. He was the chairman of the board, and I was executive director. Now I'm the founder, and he's the executive director, and we still work together. Putting together a platform. That was the key, right? Is I knew that a farm kid from Idaho, a couple of kids from Idaho, we're not going to make a dent into this child bedlessness thing by ourselves, right? This needs to be solved by the community. And so what better way to do that than building a platform that other people can follow? We both had full-time jobs, so it wasn't like, we could do this at any time, right? We were working around our own families and careers and other things to try to make this happen. So as more people found out what we could do and then start chapters, we were just building off of that. And then something happened that was completely out of the blue. And that was when we were featured on a Facebook watch back when Facebook had that. It was a series called Returning the Favor, and it was hosted by Mike Rowe. And what Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs Mike Rowe, everybody loves him.
Yeah, I love Mike Rowe, yeah.
Oh, yeah. How can you not? The guy's the coolest guy. Well, he was going around the country, and he was highlighting other nonprofits. He actually highlighted – the cool thing is he highlighted 100 of them, and season 4 was their last season. Their last episode was their 100th episode, so they did a short little blip of every single episode, right? Well, the very last episode they highlighted was Sleep in Heavenly Peace, because it wasn't necessarily his favorite, but they picked SHP number 1 because what the whole program was inspiring people to do was to copy what they were watching on TV. And that's what SHP did. When that episode aired, it was viewed by 10 million people in February of 2018.
Wow.
Well, we had about 7-8 chapters at the time to 125 in just like less than a year. And now the growth, I've been on all sorts of other programs, but organically we have grown now to, we've trained over 430 chapters in 4 countries. We're in 47 states. I just did a post tonight sharing our 2025 build numbers. We built just shy of 90,000 beds
in 2025.
In just 2025. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, that I don't know if that 350,000 number, you're gonna have to readjust your website after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, try to make a budget and a plan for next year when you're doubling almost every year. It's crazy. It's super fun.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that is the natural progression. I mean, 2 farm kids from Idaho in a town of 4,000 people, eventually you're going to run out of a need for beds. So to have these chapters come out, and then you said 47 states and four different countries now.
Four countries, yeah.
So one of the things, it's literally, I think, on your website, right by the logo, it says, "No kid sleeps on the floor in our town." So was that the original slogan when it was kind of your town? I'm assuming our town is now the world, not just small town Idaho, right?
It's a great question. It came about when I was on the drive home after that first delivery. We didn't really say much to each other. It was, we were so overwhelmed with emotion and what we just experienced. By the time we got home, because it was about a 30-minute drive, I looked over to Jordan and I said, "You know what, bud? No kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with it." So it kind of stemmed from that. And it first started out as a slogan. We didn't really have a mission statement because this was still just a family Christmas project, right?
Right.
But when we became a nonprofit and, organized, if you will, it became our mission statement. And a cool story about that, the end of 2018, I was nominated and became a top 10 CNN hero. I don't know if you know what that is.
I don't.
I didn't know.
Sounds amazing though. Yeah. Yeah. That's when you show the tattoo on your bicep right there. I'm the CNN hero.
It sounds cool. No, it was actually a very, very prestigious, and I was very humbled and honored to be selected. They go across the entire world and they pick 10 charities and the founders of those charities. And there was thousands and thousands of applicants, and I was one of 10 that got selected. It was kind of cool. They fly you out to New York and put you up. I literally stayed at the hotel right across from what's the park there? Central Park. Central Park, yeah. Brain farted there for a minute. So it was just a beautiful hotel. And then they did the award ceremony was at the Museum of Natural History, right? Mm-hmm. in the well room. And it's hosted by Anderson Cooper and Kelly Ripa. And I saw Lenny Kravitz. I saw Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, Bryan Cranston, who he is. Yeah. He's the one that introduced me, right? And so, they highlighted the charity. Anyways, long story short, the next day we went back and they did some media training with us because they said, listen, because some of these, like me, we're just farm kids from Idaho. We haven't been in front of a big stage. And they said, listen, we need to train you on how to deal with the media because you're going to get interviewed and blah, blah, blah. And so we went through that. And then they said, okay, we need to talk about your mission statements, right? And how to portray your mission statement to the media. So they went around to all these, the 9 other nonprofits. Well, they got to me with kind of a raised eyebrow. And they said, I don't think they liked it. They said, really? Your mission statement's really odd. And a mission statement is for a company to tell the public what they're doing, right? This is what we're doing. Well, our mission statement is supposed to be the exact opposite. And it is for a reason. We want the public to be the ones saying our mission statement. No kid sleeps on the floor in our town. That's why we kept the word our. We wanted our town to be everybody's town. Because we feel like this is a community problem. It's a local problem. That's why when you go to shpbeds.org, our website, you're not going to go to just one national page. You're actually going to go to the page of the chapter that's closest to you. And you're going to see what's going on. Like, probably Phoenix is your closest chapter down there, right? You're going to see Phoenix got almost 5,000 kids on their waiting list. They've delivered since 2019, they've delivered 10,000 beds. Is that crazy?
Man.
They're one of our, if not our largest chapter. But we felt like that mission statement really rang true to what we wanted. No kid, doesn't matter what kid, like, literally what kid. If the kid didn't have a bed, we were going to provide them. I didn't even care. I said, I don't even care if the family has $1 million in the closet. If their parents can't or don't want to get this kid a bed, I will then, right? It's just how we felt. And we wanted everybody else to feel the same way.
Yeah. And you said something there about a waiting list. So you do have people on a waiting list. So you're not just building beds and creating a supply and looking for the demand. Basically, you build a bed, it has a home.
Oh,
it's out. You build it, it's gone.
The sad reality is child bedlessness is so unknown. There's no national statistics anywhere. The only statistics we have is what Sleep and Emily Peace has put together. And I'm no statistician, I'll tell you that. But we know it's greater, on average, it's greater than 3% of the total population. So if you're in a town of, 100,000 people or 1 million people, there's 30,000 kids that are sleeping on the floor or with mom and dad or what in really, really uncomfortable situations. That's
mind blowing, actually.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's totally mind blowing. And so with that, if you look at Twin Falls, Idaho, where I live now, where this pretty much started, it's been 13, starting our 14th year later, we still get an application about every other day. How crazy is that? And it's only, the Magic Valley really is the area we cover here. It's only about 100,000 people.
Yeah.
So in 14 years, we're still getting applications for kids that are in need. It's it feels like an endless, bottomless pit, but we're doing our best to try to reach those that we can.
Yeah. What is the biggest roadblock that you see when it comes to fulfilling the need? I mean, is it money? Is it volunteers? Is it both?
Honestly, probably the biggest thing is it's the delivering the beds. It's reaching those kids as fast as we can. We have plenty of volunteers. The build days are actually really fun. I'm finishing up my book where I talk about the do's and don'ts of nonprofits. And one area that I think a lot of nonprofits miss the boat on is providing a meaningful and fulfilling experience for the volunteer. Now, that doesn't mean, and I had to learn this the hard way, that doesn't mean that you provide an easy solution or an easy event, right?
Right.
In fact, it's quite the opposite. We take raw lumber that we get from our national sponsor Lowe's. And I mean, these are 2x4s and 2x6s, 10 foot, 8-foot sticks, right? It's raw lumber. And then we bring tools and put them in kind of like an assembly line. And we take volunteers, some of which have never touched a tool in their life, and we teach them these stations on what to do when the wood comes through. And so in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, you'll have a couple of bunks worth of wood there. And in 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours, you'll have 50 beds worth of pieces of bed ready to go be delivered. So we can build beds really fast, but delivering the beds, there's a lot of coordination that goes into that, and anybody, I'll tell you this right now, shpbeds.org is a place where if you know anybody that has a child sleeping on the floor, you can apply for a bed for that family or for your own family. You just fill out the application, and based on the zip code that you put in, wherever the kid's sleeping, right? Mm-hmm. If we have a chapter that has accepted that zip code in their deliverable area, they get that application. And we teach our chapter presidents, this isn't a first come, first served basis, right? This is a need basis. I mean, we have stories, Tay, where one of my favorite, I don't know how to say that story, was, there was a 7-year-old or 6 and 9-year-old brother and sister that were put into foster care. Parents, for whatever reason, were out of the picture. Mm-hmm. Grandparents lived all across the country. They were staying here, and they were about to be separated only because the foster care family didn't have another bed for one of them. And the judge gave them 24 hours. Well, we had a bed in there 12 hours later. So I mean, if you think about it, these two kids, the only people they know in their lives are each other, and they're about to be separated because of a bed. I mean,
Yeah.
these are the problems that we solve. These are the reasons why it's more than just a bed. It really does keep families together. It's a place that these kids can go and relax. I mean, when you and I have a hard day from work, I mean, what do we look forward to, right? Crawling underneath our own beds and laying our head on our pillow and escaping the world for a while. And these kids don't have that available to them.
Yeah. And when you were saying these build days, on your website, you list about, well over 1 million hours of volunteer hours go into, these amazing numbers that you're throwing out there on how many beds you're delivering. I mean, what exactly does the volunteer, I mean, you kind of go there and you're hands-on building it.
Right.
Is that the majority of the volunteers? I mean, I'm assuming also some of these, there's also sponsorship opportunities. You mentioned Lowe's provides lumber, other help with material and that type of thing. If somebody wants to get involved with a build day, what does that look like, and how do they get involved?
For all you nonprofits out there, listen up. I'm going to give you a big secret. If you don't want to be financially strapped, if you want to eliminate money problems in your nonprofit, here's the key, right? I learned this very quickly. I'll give you a story if we have time.
Absolutely.
It's a guy named Hank. So Hank was, I don't know, a 200-year-old man. The guy was just old, okay? and I mean that lovingly. I mean, and the reason why is because it was actually the very first time I ever posted, like, in the newspaper, hey, I've got a build day. Anybody come down to this old decrepit warehouse that has no heat in the middle of the winter. I mean, I didn't think I was going to get anybody, so I was reaching at every corner I could get to have volunteers come. Well, anyways, volunteers started coming in, and in walks Hank. I should say hobbles Hank. And he comes up. And the cool thing about Hank, some guys, you can just see it in their face. They're weathered, but the smile tells it all. And this guy, I mean, he actually had brought little cards that said, thank you for volunteering. And he was handing them out to people. I mean, I never met this guy before.
Yeah, he's one of the volunteers.
Yeah. I knew this was not his first rodeo, right? But our build days are not necessarily easy physically, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you're lifting 10-foot 2x4s around, and you're sanding for hours, and you're drilling, and there's things that are a little bit physically challenging, certainly for a guy that's in his 80s most likely. So when he came up to me, he's like, hey, where do you need me? And I was like, at first I was like, I need you to just sit down.
Sign this waiver. Have a seat.
You just sign the waiver, bro. No, I said, well, tell you what. And his smile, again, and his face, I could just tell he was just one of those guys, right? And I said, well, what did you do for a living? He says, I was a carpenter for 40 years. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I know where I'm putting you. And I marched him back to the cut station, right? I mean, if there's one area of a build that you don't want to screw up, it's cutting wood.
Yeah.
You can't stretch that wood out.
Yeah, that's right.
And so
measure twice.
So
cut once.
yeah, exactly. And so I showed him the cuts. We have specific cuts for certain sizes of wood. It's for a person that's not familiar with woodworking, it's a little bit of a challenge. Not hard, but a little bit of a challenge. For him, it was like, it was a piece of cake, right? So I taught, and then I went to the other volunteers, and you got to understand, during a build day, there's 60, 70 people there. They don't know what they're doing, right? And so you're going like hotcakes from one station to another station, teaching this and solving this problem, making sure this battery works and this drill bit's working. I mean, so 4 hours go by, Tay, and I completely forgot about Hank. I mean, I was like, when I realized it, I was like, oh my gosh, is he still alive? I ran back to where the cut station was, and sure enough, there's Hank, finishes the last cut. I mean, he was head to toe covered in sawdust. His clothes were as white as his hair, you know? And I was like, Hank, I'm so sorry, man. I forgot about you. I was busy. sorry, and he's like, he looked at me and he says, Luke, he's like, I have spent my life volunteering, and I have never shown up to an event and within 5 minutes put on, a task, and so busy that I couldn't leave the task for 4 hours. I couldn't even go to the bathroom,
Yeah.
and instantly I was like, oh man, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot about you. And he's like, no. Thank you. And I kind of stepped back. It kind of took me by surprise. He's, and I realized that, and we have a saying in SHP, the happiest volunteers are the sweatiest and the dustiest. And if you think about it, and I know I'm the same way. If I'm going to take my time out of my day to volunteer, boy, I want to feel like I did something, right? I don't want to feel like I just pushed a broom around or punched a button. And Hank taught me that valuable lesson. Now, why that's important is because the service part of our mission, building the beds, is really the quote, quote, money maker for Sleep in Heavenly Peace, because you have 60, 70 people there all experiencing and feeling the joys of hard work and fulfillment, building a bed for a kid, for crying out loud. You don't think that they're going to go home and tell people about that? Of course they are, especially when they feel fulfilled and feel like they've accomplished something. And that's exactly what happened. And so, where the rubber meets the road when it comes to how we find our funds, I quickly found out that every company out there has a CSR, a corporate social responsibility, right? And it's becoming even more prevalent with these millennials who care almost more about what their company does for the world rather than necessarily what they do for a product, which I think is a cool thing, by the way. But no, these organizations, these companies, they usually lace some poor gal in HR with the duty of, okay, now, we got the company Christmas party, or we got the summer event, whatever. We want to give back to the community, which is cool. You need to go find something that is fun, B, can handle either 10 or 200 people, because we don't know who's going to show up. C, it would be really nice if it's a nonprofit, so these donated dollars can be refunded, and then it's meaningful and it's a give back to the community. Well, all those boxes are not necessarily easy to check, right? Yeah. Well, with Sleeping on the Peace, we not only check them all, we provide the service that is easily and safely organized. All this poor little HR gal has to do is tell me the budget, tell me how many volunteers, and where you want to do this. We take care of everything else. And that, because of that model, over 65% of our now $35 million annual organization, 65% of that are from corporations that want to do a team building exercise and donate the money to build the beds. So the beauty of it, we don't even do really fundraisers. In my opinion, fundraisers, they have a place, but if you have an opportunity as a nonprofit to make your mission, your program, a part of the fundraising process, man, that's where you don't starve. And so, these corporations that want to donate and want to give back, they provide a service opportunity for their employees. And oftentimes, whether it's a public build or an open build, or a private build rather, people that want to come, every chapter that we have has an opportunity for people to show up and learn how to build beds with their community. And it's just it's a different feel than delivering beds, but it's certainly a feeling of fulfillment and achievement.
Absolutely. I think I've said it on half the podcasts I've done, doing hard things together as a team. That's the best way to build bonds. Yeah.
Correct.
You go in with even just your friends, you're going to come out better friends. You're going to go in with your coworkers. You're going to come out, in a better dynamic at work. So I think that's great that it's not, like you said, just pushing a broom. You're busy, you're going, you're problem solving, you've got tasks, you're doing it. And then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, well, you felt like you did something and you feel good about it,
I'll give you another example. Lowe's, we've been Lowe's and we just fit really well. I mean, it's, we buy the tools, we need the wood, it just fits real well. Well, about 5 years ago, Lowe's Foundation, they raise money for the foundation and they donate to the trade skills organizations. Well, the foundation has fundraisers. They do 4 fundraisers internally with Lowe's each year. Well, part of the fundraising week, it's usually been like a golf tournament, right? And then they do a big gala and auction. Well, here they have all their vendors. You got DeWalt and Sherman-Williams and all these vendors that come to these events. Well, they do a service exercise. And, I don't know really all that they did in the past. I know some of it was like stuffing, lunch boxes and stuff like that, right? Well, when Lowe's found out what we do, right, and really took a good hard look at our build process, they called me up and said, "Hey, Luke, do you think we could do a build for one of these what they used to call Swing for Charity events with Lowe's?" And I'm like, "Heck yes, we can," right?
Yeah.
Well, because of that, now we have, and keep in mind, each one of these locations, these 4 locations each year, they'd always try to do something different, right? Well, they've done the same build with Sleep in Heavenly Peace at each location every year for 4 years in a row now. Wow. And the reason why, Lowe's wouldn't do it if the vendors didn't love it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was in California. We were going to one in Carlsbad, and I was in line for the rental car bus. And, you could tell there was other vendors there for Lowe's, the other golf clubs. And we were, of course, dressed out in SHP gear. And a guy turned around and he says, "Hey, we're excited to build beds." I said, "Sweet. Really? You guys are really that excited?" He says, "Listen, we do these events with other organizations throughout the year. This one is our favorite."
Yeah.
And I just love that. And it's because, like you said, when you build together, right, and you do hard things together, that's when the most fulfillment comes from hard work, Yeah.
And that's got to be great as a founder of something like this to kind of see where it started to where it's at now. That's got to be a lot of pride, in your heart. Yeah.
I get the question a lot. Did you ever think that would have turned into something like this? And I'm like, who thinks like that? Yeah. Like when I started this, I didn't want it to be a charity. I didn't, this was a family Christmas project. The only reason why I became a charity is because I couldn't finance it myself, right? Yeah. And the demand was so high, and so it's a dream. It's more than a dream come true, because I never knew to dream it. And now I look at it really, Tay. I look at it as a responsibility. We live our lives. Billions of people go through their lives every day, and I think it's very rare that people have an opportunity to find a passion and follow it. And, if you would have told me even 16 years ago, I'd be building beds as a career, as my legacy, if you will, I would have laughed at you,
Yeah.
But all I can say is I don't feel like I deserve it. I don't think I'm equipped to handle it, but I'm doing my best. And it's a real honor to be a part of it. It's an honor to be the face and the representative of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. And, as much of that is a burden, it's also a huge blessing.
Yeah. We've talked about building the beds. You've got a lot of sponsors and they're helping you with all of that. I mean, a bed is only it really doesn't do much without a mattress. Where are you getting mattresses?
It's a great point. And you know what? It is actually the hardest part of our whole process is finding mattresses. I mean, back in the day when we first started, I have a story of, I got a call from the local college here, College of Southern Idaho, CSI. A guy was, cleaning out the dorms. He's like, "Oh yeah, I got a ton of mattresses. Come down and grab mattresses." And I'm like, sweet, right? Because we always need twin size mattresses. Well, I wouldn't call these mattresses. held together by duct tape, and who knows what's been on those mattresses, right?
That's right. They're like encased in plastic, like jail
Oh,
mattresses.
yeah, exactly. It's always been a challenge. We actually just recently, within the last 6 months, Sleep and Emily Peace has purchased a mattress factory in Illinois to try to keep up with our demand. I mean, 90,000 beds. That's 90,000 mattresses. About 3 years ago, we used to store all the mattresses here in Twin Falls, Idaho, and ship them, to the chapters across the country. Well, shipping mattresses to Miami, Florida from Twin Falls, Idaho is not exactly smart economics. And, and most of our chapters are on the East Coast, about 85% of them. And so my wife and I, we moved our whole family to North Carolina to set up a warehouse where we can then ship mattresses to and out of. And it saved probably $300,000 or $400,000 just in logistics delivering mattresses. And so, and now, that's back when we were only doing about 35,000. Now, we source mattresses from all over the world. And we're getting better and better, finding more ways to reduce our logistics costs, get mattresses to chapters as fast as possible. It's an ongoing challenge.
Yeah. So you got the beds, you got the mattresses, you've got more kids like Haley than anybody could ever imagine. What exactly you've told me about like the experience with Haley, but just in general, what does having a bed to sleep in do for a child? What's special about a bed? What sort of effects or positive effects are you seeing in a child's life who has a bed besides just the excitement? On day 5, where are we at with the beds?
It's funny. We do surveys once in a while just to kind of keep up with that exact thing. Impact surveys, what the pre and post results of a child getting a bed, and the numbers are amazing, right? Not only are they getting a good night's sleep, that's the first and obvious one, right? But a good night's sleep, or I should say a bad night's sleep, they actually attribute it to some autism in early development. These kids, the mood and behavior is one of the biggest telltale signs. You go ask a teacher who doesn't have a bed, or if she was to guess who doesn't have a bed, she'd probably be pretty accurate, because, these kids come, they don't get a good night's sleep, ever really. So they're not prepared to learn. Their grades suffer. That's the educational side and the behavioral side. Now go to the social side. These kids, they don't like friends coming over because they don't have a bed to sleep in, right? They can't have sleepovers, right? We lovingly call Sleep and Emily Peace SHP for short. Well, I had a good buddy of mine come up to me and he says, Luke, it's actually kind of ironic that you call it SHP. And I said, why is that? He says, well, me and my sister, we grew up in a pretty rough home, right? And a lot of times we had to sneak away to our secret hiding place, our SHP, and it was our bed. And it really hit me. I thought, that's so true. We need a place to escape. As adults, we do that all the time. And, as Mike Rowe, even on Mike Rowe's podcast that you and I were talking about before we started here, he brought up a very interesting point. He says, we talk about these kids' bedrooms, but there's no bed in it. So it's not a bedroom. It's just a room. And when you think about that, it's so true. It's no different than the living room. It's no different than, a room in the house, because there's no bed in it. And that means a lot when you think about it. These kids on a social aspect, behaviorally, they have more confidence. One thing we tell the child themselves when we deliver a bed, we say, hey, listen, this is your bed. This is not your parents. It's not your brothers and sisters. This is your bed. And a lot of times these kids, they don't have anything. That first Christmas when we delivered 21 beds before Santa showed up, there was a number of those that the mom or dad told me, this is their only Christmas gift.
Wow.
And that means a lot. These kids, they don't have much. And the other thing that I think is very beautiful, and I hope that these kids take away this one thing, is I'm a stranger and I love you. And these
Yeah.
kids, it's nice for them to know that there's people out there. There's people in their room right then building this bed that built it for them, and they love them. And that means a lot for a kid that is either in a struggling home or certainly a foster care home or something like that, where they might feel like they're the only ones on the planet.
Yeah. 2012, you started this?
2012.
So that's quite some time. That's 12 years. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's not enough time, but have you had anybody who's been affected as a child by a bed that you've delivered actually come and give their time to volunteer?
Oh, happens all the time.
Really?
Sometimes the same year. I remember one of the most touching stories when it comes to that line of thinking. I was sitting in a dentist's office, ready to go get my teeth cleaned or whatever, and there was a mom and probably a 7 or 8 year old kid sitting there, and the kid was kind of looking at me funny, and I was just kind of minding my own business, and but I was obviously as always dressed in SHP garb, and finally the nurse called me back, said Luke Mickelson, and I stood up, and the lady says, I thought that was you.
Hmm.
I said, oh, do I know you? And she says, no. Sorry, man.
No, man, no worries.
But you delivered a bed to my son last year, and I didn't get a chance to talk to her very much, but those are the paydays.
Yeah.
That is the currency that we get to enjoy. It's the reason why we do what we do. These kids are they're in these situations, Tay, not because of their own choices. It's because of the choices of others, or just rotten, gosh darn circumstances, house fires or domestic violence. And I just got done talking with another podcast lady who her mom, when she was 4 years old, up and left the dad because of domestic violence. They lived in a tent for a while. She didn't have a bed, and she, I've seen those. I've seen that day in and day out. These kids just struggle, and the parents as well. It's just such a blessing to be able to bring them something as simple as a bed, but as meaningful as a bed.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can tell just, your passion for this, and, how much you love the mission and what it is that you guys are doing. I mean, everything in life, I mean, it's all about the people you meet, um, you know, priorities, right? I mean, that's kind of what we talked about earlier, the things that change later in life.
Oh.
And it's all about the people you meet and the stories you hear and the change you get to make in somebody's life, or at least just be a light in somebody's life. I mean, you're being a lot more than a light. You're being a light and bringing gifts. So,
Well, I'll tell you this, and I do a lot of keynote speaking, and basically the message I leave is, we all have these tiny moments in life, right? I don't care who you are. You have tiny moments that pass in your mind and in your thoughts. And I'm guilty of this too. Too many times, Tay, we dismiss those tiny moments. We're too busy, or, I don't know how to do that, or someone else is taking care of that, right? And how sad is that? I encourage everybody, follow those tiny moments. Now, you might not create the biggest charity in the world, but you're going to help someone, and you may not know it, but the one person I know you will help is yourself. I have found this to be so true. If you want true joy, you got to stop looking at yourself, and you got to see how you can help other people, because service brings joy. It doesn't mean that your problems just vanish. Of course they don't, right? But I tell you what it will do. It'll make them seem far less heavy than they really than obviously they are, right? They're not that heavy. And when you think about a child that doesn't have a bed, maybe that argument you had with your wife or your kids, or your boss coming down you at work, does it really matter? In the grand scheme of things, does it really matter? And that's what service provides. That's where true joy comes, is when we can see how we can help other people. And it's just an honor to be able to be a part of an organization that provides that for children, number one, but provides it for the volunteer as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great point. It's a lot to think about, and I'm really looking forward to maybe taking a peek at what Sleep in Heavenly Peace has to offer here in my local area, and see if that's something that my wife and I can get involved in, and maybe even bring a couple of our kids that are still at home. Maybe I think they would enjoy it.
They'd love it. They'd
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Given like
Are
that
you close
service.
to Phoenix?
Yeah, we're in the Mesa area, but Phoenix is
Yeah.
30 minutes away, basically.
For
So
sure.
yeah, and it sounds like that's one of your largest chapters. So there's probably quite a bit of opportunity there. So
I think they build every week. I think it's on Thursdays, which is unusual, but and the beauty of it and the story. Joe Genovese is the chapter president, and his little team of, which is 50 people, by the way.
wow,
they've done a fabulous job, and in fact, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. I brought Rob Schneider out to do a build with us. Dude, he was awesome.
Yeah, I think he lives here, I believe.
He lives in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I text him once in a while. I'd like to say we're friends, but the Phoenix chapter is one of the. I mean, they're all great. Don't get me wrong, but it's one of the more busy and prolific chapters we have, simply because they have the biggest waiting list of everybody. I mean,
wow.
That's one of the sad things about the Phoenix area is we have one chapter. They do a fabulous job, but one chapter is a lot for, I don't know, several million people.
Yeah, this is the 5th largest city in the country. And that's just the city of Phoenix. You count all the metropolitan
Mason,
area.
Gilbert, and,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's okay. You bring Rob Schneider down there, and he'll motivate everyone. You say, you can do it."
Oh, kind of a quick story about that. Whether you like him or not, he's just a cool guy that, and God bless him, he showed up to build and deliver beds. And when I was showing him around the warehouse, we were kind of doing a small little build because I wanted him to get a little bit of a piece of what we were doing.
Yeah.
Well, all of a sudden I look over and he's like FaceTiming someone, and he's like, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Adam, you got to check this out. And I went, Adam,
yeah. Sandler,
no.
perhaps?
And he's like, hey, Luke, come here. I walk over and he flat out, FaceTimes me right in front of Adam Sandler, who at the time was on the set for Two. What is it?
Happy Gilmore 2. Yeah.
Happy Gilmore 2. He was out on the set of that. And I got to talk to Adam Sandler for 10 seconds about what we were doing and talk about an elevator pitch. I mean, it was
no kidding.
But it was super fun. And, and we have a lot of great stories of amazing people that, you otherwise see on TV. You don't know what they're doing in their personal life, but they're actually fabulous people that really care and want to give back. And, and we have big events, like college kids and college football teams that now build with us. We built with Chicago Bears and the Browns and we're growing more and more and providing this service that people really enjoy doing. So if I can ask any of your listeners out there, the one thing, if you take away from today, the one thing I would ask is raise awareness for us. Help us find the more you shout out child bedlessness, and that's a problem, and SHP can be a solution to that. You're going to find families that have kids sleeping on the floor that otherwise would have not had any idea how to solve that. Right? There's no agency out there locally that's going to do this for you, and you can help that. Share this podcast. Tell your friends about it. Right? The second thing is, and this all can be found on shpbeds.org. The second thing is if you feel compelled, you can donate some money to whatever chapter, wherever in the country that you want to. And 90%, 90 cents of your dollar stays in that chapter. I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I've said it a million times. I wasn't really too big on donating to charity. Now, I'll go work my butt off, right? No sweat. But I never really trusted where my dollar would go. So when it came time that we were going to be a charity, by gosh, it was going to do it the way I think charity should be ran, right? Yeah. Like anybody would. And we made it very simple. 10% of for every donation no matter what it is, big or small. 10% goes to management because we got to turn on the lights and pay for insurance and crap like that. But 90% stays in your community, like the beds do. So donate is an option. Volunteer is a great option. You can, when you bring up shpbeds.org, it's going to bring up the closest chapter to you. You can find out what's going on in that chapter, be involved. And in the rare instance, if you bring up shpbeds.org and that chapter isn't close by, and this is something that really rings true in your heart, you can start a chapter. We have a very robust training process where we teach you, we fly you out to Lehi, Utah, where you spend a weekend with us. We teach you how to build the beds. We teach you how to raise money. We provide all the materials for you to be successful. And this is we're very proud of this. We train about 50 to 60 chapters a year, and we only lose about 2 a year. And
Wow.
Typically that's because someone moved or whatnot. So we feel like our training program is very successful for anybody. If a farm kid from Idaho can do it, anybody can do it.
Absolutely. So shpbeds.org is probably the best kind of starting point, kind of the springboard, if you will, to start getting involved and following along. I'm assuming you guys are on all the social media.
Social media. Each chapter has its own Facebook page.
Okay.
So if you type in Sleeping Heavenly Peace /AZ, Arizona, Phoenix, you'll find it or whatnot. And you can find it on the website as well. You can find me on Facebook, follow me, add me as a friend. Ask me a question, send me a message, we'll get you directed. If this is really something that you want to do and you feel compelled, man, we'll put you in the right place.
That's great, man. Well, all of the links to everything that you've mentioned and anything else, if you want to share with me, we'll put down in the episode show notes that people can click on and send you right to where you need to be, right to where you need to sign up and awesome. Jump in and hopefully start making a difference in, your town, our town. It's kind of all our town, right? So
that's right,
great. Yeah, that's right. Man, Luke, it's been a great pleasure. It's been an honor meeting you. Really appreciate your time today on the podcast. And you may not agree with it, but I think you earned that CNN Hero Award. And I do think it's kind of fitting that Bryan Cranston, the guy who broke bad, had the opportunity to introduce Luke Mickelson, the guy who broke good and continues to do a lot of good work. So
wow, I like that. Well done.
Absolutely. So, man, it's really been a pleasure. And again, the passion that you have, and I appreciate you really kind of educating everybody on just how big this problem is. I never knew, and it really is mind blowing. And I like you said, it's not a word, but it is a big problem, bedlessness. So I think fantastic work, and man, I just wish you all the best. And again, I hope to get myself involved with that. And again, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Luke Mickelson. This was a wonderful discussion, and it was great getting to know Luke and learning about all the amazing work Sleep in Heavenly Peace is doing, not only here in America, but around the world. It's obvious Luke has a passion for the Sleep in Heavenly Peace organization, as well as for all the lives it's been blessed to touch along the way. If you'd like to connect with Luke, follow the links to his social media in the show notes. If you'd like to be part of Sleep in Heavenly Peace's mission, visit shpbeds.org, linked in the show notes. I'd encourage you to not only follow along with their social media, also linked in the show notes, but to get involved. It's people that make the world go round, and there are kids out there in our town that could use your help. Don't forget to like, follow, share, and subscribe to the Stranger Conversations podcast wherever you're listening, as well as on social media at stranger.convo.pod so you don't miss out on the conversations to come. If you'd like to be my next guest, visit strangerconversationspodcast.com and sign up. I'd love to connect with you and share your story. I'd also like to thank our sponsor for today's episode, Hammer Defense. Hammer Defense makes the world's first go-anywhere self-defense cell phone case, perfect for keeping you safe on all your daily adventures. Explore Hammer Defense's options at hammerdefenseproducts.com, linked in the show notes. Make sure they know I sent you by using code TAYAZ12 at checkout. You'll also receive 10% off and free shipping on your next order. Thanks for listening. I'm Tay Jones, and we'll chat later.